Hey guys! So today we are putting a roof rack on my Jeep Wrangler JL Unlimited. It is from DV8 Offroad. We've not taken it out of the box yet. Hopefully the weather will cooperate. We got a storm rolling in, so we're working in the garage this morning. We're going to take this out of the box and hopefully it'll be easy to put together and go on the Jeep okay. Most of the work is just getting it unpackaged, but I'm glad to see they take care in the packaging. So we're not expecting any damage, but we got a lot of plastic to take off of here and other wrapping material. All the rails appear to be in good condition. Still no directions. Okay, so there is all the pieces. They do have a PDF on their website with all the instructions. And also, Kevin was able to find some YouTube videos showing how to put it together. Doesn't look like it's going to be too difficult. We will see. It is 58 pounds. It's 86 by 54 by 4 inches. And it has a 200-pound load capacity.
So one of the first steps, according to the instructions, is taking this little felt pad and sticking it to the inside of this bracket. This is going to be how it gets held to the drip rail. This will be under the drip rail. And then the other thing that they gave was these little rubber pads that slip over the top of that little flange there. So essentially what happens is this gets mounted to the roof rack. This goes under the drip rail and they'll sit together like that, and the drip rail gets pinched between the two. So those pads are just going to, actually I got that backwards. It sits inside like that. So it sits inside like this, and the drip rail gets pinched in between there. So those pads will help protect the drip rail. Hopefully that made sense. Then the next step is we go through and we get all these little nuts and bolts, and there's a washer and a lock washer. And then there's, yeah, you can see that. So there's 4 spots at each corner where these go into, and this will go in from the top and then get tightened from underneath. So now we're just going to kind of go through and get everything laid out and ready to go, and we'll start assembling it.
So here are the tools you're going to need. You're going to need a 10mm wrench, a 4mm Allen head. You're going to want to have a ratchet with extension and a 4mm Allen head socket. So each of the corner screws received a washer, a lock washer, and a nut on the back side. We've got them all put in on each corner. And Kevin's just going around now and tightening them up. Another tool you're going to want to use is this speed square here. Something to tell you whether or not it's square, because as you're tightening it, you want to make sure all these corners are indeed square.
All right, so Cindy's just laying out the trusses right now. There's 7 of them that go from front to back. And they do have a bow in them. And that bow is going to go so it's up. Those are going to get bolted on the same way with the same Allen head bolts, and then a nut, a washer, and a lock washer.
So we have this side done, and we've already started installing the gutter mounts or drip rail mounts, whatever you want to call them. They're going to our drip rail. And those are done with 2 bolts on each mount. So we decided it's easier to get these trusses bolted down if we put these gutter mounts on first. They just go on with 2 bolts, and what that does is it gets it up off the ground a little bit, making it easier to get underneath these bolts when they go in. And they go in through here, through the top, and you got to be really careful not to drop them, like I just did. Hold on. When you drop them, they go inside this hollow area here. Kevin's gonna lift that side and try to drop it out for me so that I can get it. Alright, I'm gonna try it again. I'm using the Allen wrench. I can get my fingers in here, but it's really tight, and probably most people would have trouble getting their fingers in there. Kevin's not able to get his in there at all, so I'm using the Allen wrench to kind of guide it as I get it in there. And now it's just washer, lock washer, and a nut. So those go on there, just kind of try to hold them in place a little bit with my fingernail there. Get this started. Then I can come up here, and if you can't put your finger in there, use the Allen wrench, and then you can finger tighten it. And that's all we're doing right now is finger tightening it because we want room for adjustment later. These pieces here are used to mount the rack to the Jeep, and we'll show you that in a bit. But first, we want to try to get the solar mounted onto this rack and lift it all up onto the Jeep at once. The panels we're going to be installing are from Renogy. They are 100-watt monocrystalline panels, and we are going to be installing 3 of them. Kevin's tightening everything down now. So we're thinking this is the configuration that we're going to go with. This will give us room for other things around the panels. We're going to lift this up a little bit and take a look at the underside and try to figure out the best way to run the wiring before we make that decision. So what are you thinking?
I'm laying down on the job. I think we bolt them together so they're like 3 solid panels, and then we come up with some sort of U-bolt or something that'll bolt it to these rails. I think it'll be pretty solid. And then these wires I think can run above these and connect together, and then go out over to the side and then to the back. I think it'll work. I just don't think I have the hardware for this. I'll have to find. Yeah, I think it'll work. Alright, so I think I figured out how we're going to mount this. And I'm going to use some stuff I have on hand. I've got this, I think this is a 1 inch or 1.25 inch flat aluminum stock. I'm going to cut these into 3-inch pieces to make a bracket that's going to go underneath and get bolted to the frame of the solar panel. And then for the solar panel, I'm going to install nutserts into there, so we'll be able to bolt into that, and that's basically going to clamp it to these rails. And I'm going to do 1 in the front, 1 in the middle, 1 in the back, and then these solar panels are also going to get bolted together as well. And I may use nutserts for those also. I like using them just because then I just have to bolt and I don't have to worry about trying to get a wrench or anything on the opposite side. And I can just bolt these down. And I have plenty of them, so might as well use them. So now I'm just marking where these roof rack trusses hit on the solar panels. So I'll know where to drill in for these brackets. So the next thing I'm going to do is drill the holes where I can bolt these panels together. And this is the center one that's going to go on the rack. And then there'll be the outer one on this side and the outer one on this side. I'm going to put nutserts in the center one. And then just bolt these to it. And the way I'm going to line these up is I'm going to use this so I know I'm in the right spot front to back. And then as far as the center up and down, you can see these have lines in them, and this line's going through the center. So I'm going to mark a hole that's across from this hole in the center, and that's where I'm going to drill. And back here, I'm going to use these oval. So I'm going to mark where the center of this is on that hole. And when I'm done, hopefully everything will line up properly. Be able to bolt them together, and then these will be ready to go on the rack. Alright, so we got all the holes drilled, and we went ahead and lifted it up so it's just a little easier to work on. And we decided to just put bolts through to connect the panels instead of the nutserts. And I'm just going to use a 1/4-20 bolt with a washer on each side, and then a lock washer, and a nut. And we're going to do that and bolt all the panels together. And then once we do that, we'll get everything measured out where it's going to fit on the rack, and then put our clamps to hold it to the rack. So that's what we're doing next.
The nuts and bolts are in. Now we just have to figure out all the wiring. All the panels are parallel connected. What that means is all the positive wires are connected to the positive wires, and all the negative wires are connected to the negative wires. Here at the back of the rack, Kevin has put a grommet to run wires through, and those wires are what will run down and go into the Jeep at the back.
Alright, so we have the gutter mounts down into the drip rail, and I'm just going through and tightening these up to the rack. Once that's done, we're going to try to shift this rack forward a little bit because it's off center from where we want it. And then once we do that, we'll be able to put the other part of this bracket on that pinches it to the drip rail.
We pulled the Jeep back as far as we could. Otherwise, we would have dropped this down right where it needed to be.
So the rack's on the Jeep. Still clears the garage. We still need to clamp it to the drip rail, but we want to get it out so we can take a good look at it and make sure everything's lined up the way we want it.
really good. I like it. We still have to run it inside, but we're running out of daylight, so we will do that tomorrow.
Our plan to get this wire into the Jeep is to run it alongside this hinge here and then behind this window. And you can see there's a void here that this could run into. I've already drilled a hole here, which I wasn't excited about, but I figured it was the best way to go in. And I put a grommet in there, so these wires are going to feed through there. And then once we figure out the length, I'll put MC4 connectors on these, and they'll connect into the cord that goes into her power bank, which also has the MC4 connectors on it. The nice thing about this is I do have a plug that if we decide not to use the solar, I can put that in there, and then it closes it off, and it doesn't look too bad, and hopefully that'll work. So I think I'm going to make a little change of plans here, and I'm going to actually drill a new hole on this piece right down there, and put this, I'll drill it the same size, and I'll put a grommet in there, so that way the cable will run straight down and get on top of this, and then run nice and smooth on top of the roof down into the hinge, so that way it won't be as noticeable. So that's what we're going to do next, and see how that works out. Alright, so I got the hole drilled in the bottom of the roof rack, and I put a grommet in there, and I pulled the wires through, and I just used some soapy water to help get them through there a little easier. And you can see there where they come out at, right across from the hinge where we're going to go into the back of the window there. Alright, so what I ended up doing is making a little bracket that I'm going to put underneath the washer that holds this hinge on. That'll hold this in place. I'll paint that black. And I'm also going to do one on the other side, so we're going to run them down each side. I think that's going to be the easiest and cleanest way. And then when we close the window, it's out of the way of the hinge cover. And I think it'll look pretty good. You'll barely see it when it's painted. So I've got the two brackets in, and the wires run in between. The window closes nice. I got these wires here, and this is what I used to make that bracket. I just flattened it out and then cut these two ends off and made it out of that. Okay, so I've cut the cables to length and added the MC4 connectors, and then we plugged in the cable that goes to Cindy's power station. These MC4 connectors will just lay down there in the bottom, and then this cable will run through here, and she'll be able to plug her power station into that. There'll be a plate that goes on the front of this that'll keep everything nice and neat looking. But for now we want to test it, so I'm just going to run these out the back through here so we can plug it into her power station. We got it plugged in now, and it looks like we're bringing in about 166 watts or so. It's a little over 5 o'clock, so we're not in peak sunlight right now, so I think that's pretty good. It should work out pretty well for her.
So now I have power. It's exciting to see it finally starting to kind of come to life. I've still got to get lighting and all that set up in there, but having it connect, now that I have the solar connected to the power bank, I can get all that figured out and have a way to test everything. We're going to be moving along to probably the plumbing next. hopefully. We're gonna start working in the footwell area there behind the driver and passenger seat. And I think that's gonna entail getting the water tanks in. So if you wanna see those videos and keep watching this entire build, I hope you'll consider subscribing to my channel. Give it a thumbs up if you like this video, and I will see you next time. Bye guys.